What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Dynasty Talk with Sam. I'm Sam, obviously, right? It's going to be just me today, and we're going to be going over something that I'm super excited to talk about, and that is how to save your team for week 3 and beyond, or just in general, how to save your Dynasty team, right? Week 2 brought with it a lot of injuries, a lot of bad things happened in week 2 and week 1, right? Lots of injuries. Nick Chubb especially, but Eckler's out, Montgomery, SAQUON Barkley, Anthony Richardson suffered a concussion, right? So many things. And what we're going to go over today is how to approach a team that has gone through some things like that, especially in a dynasty sense. And what do you do if this happens to your team, right? So I'm going to go over some main points. And then at the end, I'm going to go over a specific team to use as an example. And we're going to use these points to kind of walk through what moves were made, what was done, and why I made those moves, right? So to start, first step that I'm going to go with is going to be aggressive, right? So if you lose a player, for example, a Nick Chubb, the first thing you need to do is you need to be searching out how to replace Nick Chubb on your own. Don't wait for the offers to come in. You need to be searching out the teams that have excess RBs on them and go attacking and finding those trades yourself, right? You find who you want. You need to look at the weaknesses of that team. And then you can start offering them trades based on the depth that you have maybe at other positions. Maybe you have a couple tight ends and they need a tight end, right? And you're able to go get Jerome Ford or a backup or something, right? So the first step is you need to be the one going and looking for trades. Do not sit back and let them just come to you. Step 2, don't waste a year. Now, this can be hard if you are unsure of how competitive your team may be. If you're in a dynasty league and let's say you won the championship last year, so you know your team has what it takes to win, this wouldn't be as confusing. But if this is your first year competing, or maybe your first year in a dynasty league, you might not totally know if it's a year where you can win at all. So learning how to tell what type of team you have is very important. So if you have a contending team, let's say you have some older players, you have Austin Eckler, or you have Devontae Adams, you have Travis Kelce. You can't sit back after you suffer an injury and just wait and ride it out and be like, oh, I'll just win next year. Because with those kind of guys, when you only have a couple years left, you have to make every year count. So really learning to take advantage of your dynasty team's window and learning how to approach building a team that can win is super important. So my first thing on what type of players to target is going to be target low performers. And obviously I don't mean players that are just bad, right? I mean low performers or guys that you had ranked highly in the preseason that haven't started too hot, but you still believe in. Maybe they started slow due to a tough schedule, right? Maybe they got a little banged up. Maybe they were suspended, right? There's a couple guys like that. Or maybe they just had some pure bad luck and you think the touchdown regression is going to come. Right? So stick to your guns, think of some players that started off low. Like, for example, right now, Dameon Pierce started off low. If you are a believer in Dameon Pierce, he's going to be more attainable right now than he was 2 weeks ago. And that's just the truth about Dynasty, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get him, but it does mean that it might be enough to start a conversation. And to pair this with the point 1 of be aggressive, you need to be aggressive and go get some of these players that you want and see if they can work out for your team, right? You're not going to turn around a season without going for it, So the next thing, and these all kind of tie together, right? Which is why there's these 5 points that I'm going to go over, and that's take risks, right? Just like be aggressive, just like target low performers, you have to take on some risk on your team, whether that's using all of your fab to go get Kyron Williams week 1 because you lost J.K. Dobbins, or being the guy to trade the second round pick for Jerome Ford because you liked what you saw. You're not going to win taking no risks. And I always say with Dynasty, it is better to be first or last, right? The worst thing you want to be is in the middle of a Dynasty league because you're not getting the studs in the rookie draft and you're not competing. If you can't realistically compete for a bye in a Dynasty league, you really should be taking a double take on if your team is competitive, because if you can't compete for one of those top 2 seeds, then you might just be losing to the teams that are, and you might be caught in the middle. So taking risks can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean trading for an injured player, right? Let's say you are able to go get Cooper Kupp. That's a risk. But if you get him on your team and he turns it around, it's definitely something that could totally help and totally lead to a championship for your team. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is going to be realistic, right? So what do I mean by be realistic? So you may think you have a good team. You might love your startup draft. But being realistic means if you aren't a competitor, it might be time just to sell if you do have that one injury. If you've been riding Josh Allen and Nick Chubb and only those 2 guys to wins and championships, and you lose Nick Chubb, it might be time just to sell and start rebuilding. So you really need to look at your team, and something that I really like to think of when I'm looking at dynasty teams. I'm going to walk by position. You need to look at all your position groups and see where you stack up against your league, right? Do you have a top 5 QB? Do you have a top 5 running back? Do you have probably multiple top 12 wide receivers? And not only multiple top 12 wide receivers, do you have probably 4 or 5 guys in the top 30? Do you have a top tight end? And what's your depth like, right? You need to really preach to compete in the dynasty league, not only building a great starting lineup, but you can win so many games by having a deep team, because once those injuries start to pile up, once the bye weeks come, if you are able to still start a productive team while other people are starting flyers, you can really rack up wins and lead yourself to that bye, right? So when it comes to saving your team this year specifically, we need to really take in mind all those things, right? So be aggressive. Don't waste a year. Be realistic. Take risks. Target low performers, right? So what can that mean on a waiver wire? Maybe it means spending your fab. Maybe it means trading for that guy that's a little riskier or had a bad start, right? And it's not easy to do that. But if you have been dealt a bad deck of cards, a bad hand, then you really have to take advantage and go for it. Because if you're sitting there and you have the team and you lost that one piece and you just don't replace them, you're going to be sitting there at the end of the season really wishing you did. So what we're going to quickly go over just to finish this video up is I'm going to go over an example of a team that I've actually gone through some of these roster injuries, right? It's a dynasty team of mine. I'm actually the defending champ. And I'm going to go over some of the decisions I had to make, why I made them, and, really looking at the mirror to see if this is the year. So I'm just going to quickly go over the quick hitters of the team. This obviously isn't the entire team. It's a super flex league, 12 team. QBs, Lamar, Herbert, Danny Dimes, Kenny Pickett. RBs, Chubb, Dobbins, Eckler, Monty, Kamara. That is no starters at the moment, right? That is just super crazy. Wide receivers, Diggs, Lamb, AJ Brown, Debo, D-Hop. Tight ends, Hawk, Kincaid, Kmet. Bench and picks. I am lucky. I have all of my first, 24, 25, 26. And then the 2 bench players that I specifically mentioned is Jerome Ford and Joshua Kelly. I was lucky enough to have Jerome Ford on my taxi squad, so that is making me feel at least a little better. Joshua Kelly, as soon as the Nick Chubb trade happened or injury happened, I went and got Joshua Kelly, and I gave up Jake Ferguson in a tight end premium league to go get Joshua Kelly, because I'm looking at this team right now, and just like those check boxes I just went over, I check most of these boxes, even if you subtract Chubb and Dobbins from this team. Eckler's still going to be there. Monty will be back, and Kamara will be back. And so I can just survive these next couple weeks, and hopefully these guys get healthy. And I just need to compete until they get back. But I'm not going to throw a year away with a team like this. You look around, your window closes up so quickly in Dynasty that if you have a chance to win, you do really have to go for it. Right now, I'm piecing it together. I'm going to hope Jerome Ford, Joshua Kelly, maybe the guys come back. But I'm not going to be afraid to move any of these first-round picks to go get a running back. Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. Trying to think of some more aging players. Joe Mixon, or even some of these low performers. Cooper Kupp is a perfect example. If I'm really trying to get the upside, as much as I love Debo and D-Hop, a healthy Cooper Kupp is going to put up more points in my flex position than both of those guys. And those are the kind of moves you need to make, because come playoff time, you need to not just be one of the best teams, you need to be the best team. And to do that, you need to put yourself in position to do so. And when targeting some of these elite players, I think the best thing to do is use some of your younger depth. So, for example, looking at this roster, right, Cole Kmet could be a great guy. I'm probably going to hold on to Kincaid because I'm just such a fan. But using a Cole Kmet, a couple other guys, like I mentioned, Jake Ferguson, I have Elijah Moore on the bench. Players like that can potentially mean more to a rebuilding team, that you can couple that player with a first-round pick and really attack a stud, whether it's midway through the season or right now, to save your team, right? There's no reason to wait, because not only do you want to be able to compete for a bye, but getting a bye in the playoffs really exponentially increases your chance of winning. Having to win only 2 games compared to 3 is absolutely everything in fantasy football. It is not hard to go on a 2-game winning streak, but 3-game winning streaks are much more difficult because so much chance comes in, So I really hope that this kind of example helped you guys. I'm trying to kick it quick and just kind of quick hitters with some of these things, but this is really just pertinent information in general. It's not just about week 3 of this season. But yeah, hit me up. Where's Waldorf on Twitter, man? I'd love to help you rebuild your team. Love to help you know if you're a contender or not. Shoot me a screenshot of your team, and I'd love to go over it. But thank you guys for joining me for a little solo Dynasty Talk with Sam, and I will catch you later.